Can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your history with the executive's office and why you want to continue in that position?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm Dave Sommers. I'm the current Snohomish County Executive. I'm just finishing up my second term, so that's 8 years. Prior to that, I was elected to the County Council 4 times, representing Council District 5, which is East County, so it includes Snohomish, Monroe, Sultan, Sky Valley. And I actually first got elected in 1997. So been doing county government for quite a while. Before that, I actually, went to the UW in fisheries, and I worked for Tulalip tribes for 18 years as a fish biologist. And so I'm been in Snohomish County a long time. I really love it. It's a really beautiful place. I want to keep it that way. It's a
Yeah.
great place to live and work, and so my goal is to make sure county government is working, functioning well, efficiently, focused on the right issues that just really are essential for our quality of life here. And just off the top, that's public safety is huge. It's on everybody's minds. Jobs, employment, economy is very big. We're a growing county and got great industries here, and we want to keep them and grow them. Housing is part of this formula of quality of life, because you have to be able to afford to live here, and that's a large issue for us. And environment's big for me, coming from a fish background, but it's part of what Snohomish County is. It's a beautiful place to live, with the sound and the mountains and the forest areas and ag areas and rivers.
Hmm.
So I view all those things as part of the whole. And I would like to have my third and final term as county executive. We are limited to 3 consecutive terms, but I've got just a really amazing team in place in my office and in my departments. They work hard. They are really focused on solving problems, and we've also worked really hard to collaborate uh, cooperatively with other elected officials, like the sheriff's office, prosecuting attorney, a whole host of other elected officials in our cities and towns and our businesses. And so, I think we've built up good relationships throughout the county, and that's also part of what makes Snohomish County special to me. We work hard to collaborate and
Hmm.
focus on our common interests, and hopefully put some of the divisions and divisive issues. They're important, but it's not where we want to focus on those differences. We want to focus on what do we agree on, how do we move forward together. So I would love to have
Hmm.
a fourth term, or third term, excuse
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for all of that. What are some things that you are sort of most proud of in the last 8 years that you feel like you've accomplished in office?
Yeah, there was quite a bit of division and conflict within even county government when I took over in the exec's office, and we've worked really hard to repair that and put it behind us. And that's job number one for an executive, is to make sure I'm the CEO of the county, and so I've got to make sure
Hmm.
the day-to-day operations are working well, and I think we've done that. And that's, I've already mentioned that is important to me. Externally, we've got great relations with our major employers, Boeing, ATS, others, aerospace. We've got new businesses coming in, aviation, building electric planes up in Arlington.
Hmm.
Avia down at Painfield, working on hydrogen electric with Alaska Airlines and Boeing. We're standing up a sustainable aviation fuel facility. The aviation industry has to transition to green energy sources, and sustainable aviation fuel is something the whole world is looking for and at. So we're trying to be at the leading edge of that. Obviously, getting commercial air service at Painfield has been
Hmm.
a great asset, and it's just a top-notch facility. It's like almost nowhere else.
Right. It's a dream to utilize.
Dream to utilize. Exactly. So, and we've changed up our workforce development system, which trains people, helps them get jobs, but also trains them in some essential skills. And it helps workers also transition as job requirements and job skill needs change. They need training to make that transition. So we put in place a Future Workforce Alliance. It's really looking at the future of work and the emerging technology, and really restructured our programs to be very, again, cutting edge. And on the economy, I think we're doing well. And in public safety, we've teamed up. We did this before the pandemic with the Sheriff's Office to create the Office of Neighborhoods, which is social workers going along with law enforcement officers that interact with people that are homeless and on the street. And I think it's the right approach. It's kind of the all of the above. Some people need help, whether it's for addiction, could be mental health crises, it could be unemployment, underemployment, age, and some of those people need a law enforcement approach. Frankly, if they're breaking laws, a danger to themselves and others, the law enforcement side needs to kick in and get into the system. But we also need to help them with their issues if we can, and if they want help. So the human services side. So teaming those two together, I think, has been really great and crucial. It really is all of the above. Not doing law enforcement doesn't make any sense, and just doing human service doesn't make any sense, and vice versa. So that whole mix and that partnership between law enforcement and human services providers has been, I'm proud of that. There's a lot of work to do. We're really being swamped by the drugs that are coming into the whole country, but we're working on it. And we've done some really great environmental things. Meadowbrook, Meadowdale Beach, just a big restoration project down there that worked with Burlington Northern Santa Fe to take out a culvert and put in a bridge over a small estuary, and the salmon are really swarming in there and haven't for 100 years.
Really, oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you see it also on the Snohomish estuary just by Everett. Is if you drive by high tide, there's a lot of water that wasn't there before. It was And we've got the largest estuarine restoration accomplishments in the state. It's much bigger than Nisqually. Everybody hears about the Nisqually Delta and Nisqually estuary restoration. Ours is larger. It's the largest in the state. That's great for salmon, great for wildlife, great for water quality. The soils in there weren't great for agriculture anyway, and weren't maintaining themselves, and the people that owned them, frankly, couldn't maintain the dikes and things because there was no money in it. So, hard on environmental issues. And on housing, we put together a task force before the pandemic to look at affordable housing at all price levels. There's right from the very starter homes, or people that just need apartments, or at the lower end. That's one issue, but it goes throughout the whole spectrum of affordability in housing. And so we've done things like allowed accessory dwelling units now in urban and rural areas, so people that have homes and have lots can add a mother-in-law type of apartment easily. We're looking at zoning changes for having more multifamily along transit corridors where there's public transit. We're looking at our comp plan land use on where we need more single-family space. So it's a multi-level approach. It's also, we involve the cities and nonprofit providers. So again, it was collaborative. And so, a number of accomplishments I'm really proud of. Again, it feels like Snohomish County is on the rise. It has been for a long time, but we're going to keep it that way. We want to keep it positive and focus on the challenges we have, but also keep our, which is a really bright future for Snohomish County.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of intentional growth. So, with good measures in place and all of that. One thing that we have, or I have rather, started to notice as I'm talking with a lot of folks who are running is a lot of misconceptions around what each position does actually and what they have control over. So for some who might not understand kind of what your position truly entails, can you help us understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the county executive is it's kind of like being the mayor of the county government. I have a number of departments that answer directly to me, and I'm responsible as the chief executive officer to make sure they're running well. And so the planning department, the parks department, public works department, the medical examiner, let's see, facilities, human services, the medical examiner, and I'm sure IT department. I'm
Mhm.
sure I'm missing some, but day-to-day operations of those falls under my purview, and I have people, executives, directors that help me with those. But the basic functions of county government, building roads and providing parks and providing human services, are my responsibility. I also have a broader responsibility to develop the budget for the
Mhm.
entire county. So that includes other elected officials like the sheriffs, the prosecuting attorney, the assessor, the auditor, the treasurer, and did I said auditor? Well, there's other electeds that have their
Yeah.
own departments, and they're responsible for the day-to-day operation of their departments. But I am responsible for presenting a proposed budget for the entire county each year to the county council. So it's a area of great responsibility. It requires to be good at it, I think, collaboration with those other elected officials. And
Mhm.
then the budget and other things, when we propose code changes or things like that, have to go through the county council, which is like the legislative branch. So I'm the executive
Mhm.
side, they're the legislative side. So I have to work also with the county council. And some of our functions like, well, parks and roads, we're just focused primarily on unincorporated county, but human services and law enforcement, criminal justice, all those other uh, functions of county government are county-wide. So, and land use, frankly, we do a comprehensive plan that affects what cities can do. So we have county-wide responsibilities, and then we have just unincorporated county responsibilities. So
I see.
it's a great job. Again, easiest described is kind of like being the mayor of.
Right. And I like the way that you describe that too, because it kind of simplifies it a little bit as much as you possibly can for for
Yeah.
your position. But um, one of the things that we learned recently in these interviews was sort of while you may be in charge of a lot of things, you have a lot of insight to provide, but ultimately sort of the level of control is quite dispersed amongst your
Yeah.
team and back onto sort of city council as well. Um, we talked a lot about in other interviews with when you get frustrated with something, you tend to just place a blame somewhere.
Right.
And so sort of that education around, how much control do you really have? And so I think that sort of explanation of similar to the mayor of, you really have to put a lot of those decisions back on your team too.
Yeah. The primary government within cities is the city mayors and the city councils. But then again, there's overlap, and it is confusing. You have to really be involved in it for quite some time to really figure it out. I'm still learning things. I've
Hmm.
been in doing this for a long time, and some areas aren't clear. Frankly.
Right.
Who's doing what? Then you have to sit down with everybody and figure out how you're going to do it.
Hmm.
But the best thing is talking with others, working with others, involving cities and nonprofits and businesses, and involve
Hmm.
the citizens, involve them in the process, and that's the best way forward.
Right. What are some ways recently that you have sort of encouraged the county to engage with the community?
Yeah, well, we just about everything we do right now. In fact, I think tonight there's it's either tonight or tomorrow, a big public open house uh, around our comprehensive plan. So every 10 years, the county uh, creates a master plan, and that includes land use, includes goals for how we grow in the future. It includes goals and our transportation system and our environment, and so that gets reviewed every 10 years. It is county-wide, and then the cities, after the county passes theirs, the cities have to do their own comp plans in their cities, but that are consistent with the county plans.
Mm-hmm.
Over it doesn't specify the details within the cities, but it says generally like this is how much population you have to plan for, and cities go do it. So, but public involvement, that is absolutely essential, because it really affects everybody. It affects where growth happens. It affects our transportation system. So that's one. We on the public safety issue, we've created a what we call a multi-agency coordination group to bring cities, law enforcement, nonprofits, just interested parties, school districts now into how we address the fentanyl crisis together. An example of that is one thing we want to really grow is support for education in the schools. Kids are being faced with drugs every day. They're out there, even down into the grade schools. And so providing education about how dangerous they are and deadly they are, we need to work together on that. So that's an area of a lot of collaboration. I'm on the Sound Transit Board of Directors, and we're going through a process now of looking at how we bring light rail from Linwood up into Everett, and where the stations are and the routes and all the transportation and access issues that go along that. So we're having numerous public workshops in that area. So it's we have over 24 advisory groups for the county, for everything from parks, the Evergreen State Fair planning, to senior issues, to public safety issues, emergency management issues. We have groups of citizens that we ask to help us, and they spend a lot of time. Human Rights Commission, ask them to really guide us, tell us what they're seeing out in the community and what the county needs to do to better address them. So public involvement is really critical, and those are some issues. We've also got a climate change advisory group too, that's telling us both what we need to do as a county, but also as a county government, but also what some of the issues are throughout the community, like flooding and fires and drought and the other things that go along with it. So we really turned to the public and to experts to help advise us.
Yeah, definitely. How is engagement from the public? Do you find that there's good turnout or not?
Yeah, it depends on the issue. There's a core of people that have been involved in issues, and for example, the housing issues. There are nonprofit housing providers, and obviously they watch the process and they get engaged in their issue. There's transit advocates, so you do find groups of people that are pretty consistent. But then issues like the comprehensive plan, where we have broader workshops and online forums and that sort of thing, the interest tends to grow as you get closer to a decision. And
yes,
and so on some of our land use issues, we can get hundreds of people to some of the hearings or public meetings on it if there's enough public interest. The county was looking at purchasing a church in North Everett recently to be kind of a service center for homeless and folks on the street, and the word got around. We were just thinking about it at the time. We hadn't even had any public forums, and we got daily, literally hundreds of people. So sometimes a spark, people are concerned about how something's going to affect their neighborhood, then you really tend to see a lot of interest and a lot of activity. So it varies by subject area, but we have a significant number of really dedicated people that help us consistently.
Oh, good. That's awesome. And I think when we think about election time and voting, our turnout isn't always the greatest. So, thinking about how that can impact other things, but that's great to hear that there's some good engagement for sure.
Yeah.
So what are some, oh, go ahead.
One thing I love, when I was first elected to the county council, I wanted to create an ombudsman position. The county didn't have one, and an ombudsman is somebody that really is directly answerable and responsible for the people, the public, not the government side, to help with problems. It comes out of Scandinavia. I'm not sure where it came from, but a few years ago, and I crafted years ago action to get that funded. It didn't pass at the time, but it's probably maybe 6 or so years ago, we created a public advocate position in the county, and it's a full-time position with 2 helpers. And I'm really proud of that, because I used to be on the outside of government, and I know when I tried with county, it was kind of confusing, and you didn't know who to talk to. It's big. There's a lot of people. You talk to one person, you go talk to this other person, and you don't know how it all works, because you can't. You know, the average citizen is not going to be that involved. But the public advocate position is somebody that's there for anybody that walks in the door that's got a problem and a question, to make sure that they navigate to the right place and the right person and get an answer. It might not be the answer they want, but they get an answer. And so, you know, that's the kind of government I want. You know, it's one that is accessible, that has doorways for people to not just be frustrated and turn aside, but actually, you know, be helped.
Yes, definitely. I think that's so important, because it can be very daunting for the average person to understand all the nuances and where to even go to get a question answered. So to have that role would be wonderful for sure. And that's someone who has been in place for the last 6 years?
It's 6 or maybe even a little more, but it popped in my mind as something I'm particularly proud of at the county, and I did see the need for that when I first got elected back in the 90s, and it finally came to fruition. So
yeah, that's wonderful. That's really cool to see something kind of really come to after lots of thought and planning.
A lot of things take a little time, but
exactly. That is so true. So true. So what are some things that, when you're kind of drafting the budget and starting to work on that, how do you prioritize needs? Like, how do you determine which needs to be at the top of your list?
Yeah, well, we the way we set up our budget process is we ask each of our departments and the other elected officials to propose a budget, and, you know, start with what you've got, and then tell us what you'd like to add or change for the coming year and why. And so in the spring, the departments do that, and, you know, their electeds do that. They present it to my team, and we go through line by line, step by step. And I've got executive directors that are responsible for different departments. So I've got an executive director that knows the sheriff's office really well, and the jail, and they kind of represent those departments in our discussions. Okay, for example, the sheriff wants 30 more deputy positions. And we talk through that. We look at the costs, our finance team. So we go through line by line all the requests, and then we do the best we can projection of what our revenues are going to be, and so how much money we have, and then we just make decisions on what I'm going to put in my recommended budget. And I try to be fair. I'm an advocate for local government, for county government. The functions we provide, the services we provide, are really important, and they're all important, frankly. And so I've got a balance between human services and criminal justice, or the sheriff's office, law enforcement. And so I try to be fair to everybody. We look at are there ways we can, if we don't have the money, can we fund it another way? Can we start a program? And for example, the budget I presented this year to the council, and they're going through right now. Last year we were able, and should have, gave cost of living increases to many departments. For the sheriff's office, for example, was really having trouble keeping people and hiring people, because our wages were lower than what others were offering. So we made adjustments there, and kind of in a number of departments. So at the end of the day, those cost of living increases really kind of ate up any revenue we had. And so we could afford new FTEs, new positions, and everybody got treated the same, frankly. You know, we said no a lot to new positions, but look for opportunities. Where can we help you, and be strategic? And what's the we always ask them, what's the most important thing? Prioritize your list here. Just try to be fair to everybody and recognize we're part of a system. Everybody's got their role, and fund them as best we can. Now, the county council is now going through the process of looking at what I've presented. They hear from the electeds separately, and they can make adjustments, and they're the final decision makers on the budget. But you look at how can I make sure the system is in balance and working together. If I have sheriff's deputies, well, do we have the jail space, and do we have the prosecuting attorneys to handle the cases, and the courts funded? Everything's connected, and you have to really think through, if we do this, what are the implications, and how we fund it? If we don't do it, what are the implications? And it's just a long, tedious process, but it's frankly fascinating. And we've got a great budget and finance team that know the county inside and out. And we just spend a lot of long days, going through line by line.
Yes, I can imagine. It also sounds like you put a lot of sort of like of the control and all of that sort of back into those folks who are the experts in their team. So those people that run those departments, they're truly the experts, and so they prioritize their needs, which probably helps a lot with your prioritization as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely. They are the experts. I do a lot of times there'll be choices to make. We could do this or do that, and then get to weigh in. One example from my standpoint is it's something we've been doing, but we've been replacing culverts under roads, so to eliminate fish barriers. The state got sued by the tribes a few years back. The tribes won. Court said the state has a responsibility to fix all these fish passage barriers. Well, the county, it really is a subsidiary of state government. We are creating state government, and so I said we need to prioritize this too. Let's get going each year. Let's increase our investment to be doing these kinds of projects too. And so I get to weigh in on things like that. And if Parks has a list of 5 projects and we can only fund 3, I get to weigh in on those things. But I try, we try not to tell like the sheriff what to do. He's running his department, and the same with the other elected officials. The auditor, but he knows what he needs and where he needs to go, and we defer to them. But I'm responsible for the budget, making sure it's balanced. So we tell them how much they can have. And then they pretty much decide what they're going to use it for.
Yeah, wonderful. And when people don't necessarily understand maybe policy changes or kind of some of those bigger changes that happen sort of in the legislative or state level, or even larger, how do you kind of communicate that with community members or help them understand what they might not otherwise?
Yeah, I think this is really important, and I encourage my deputies, my department directors and staff to respond to questions, respond to the public, and give them good information. I was a scientist, and I believe fundamentally the best thing you could do is give somebody the truth as best you know it, give them the facts, try to help them through it, and it works much of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. People have made their minds up on what's wrong, and it may not be accurate, but all you can do is keep pointing them to the correct information and be patient, because we do this every day. The public does not, and it's very easy. It is complex. So we just have to have patience and understanding, but provide good information at the end of the day and tell people the truth, and have our word mean something. So that's fundamentally the way we do it. But all the staff spend a lot of time with public interaction, and we encourage that because we work for the public.
Definitely. Well, wonderful. I feel like I learned a lot about the executive's office today and kind of what your role is. Is there anything before we finish up that you want people to know prior to casting their ballots?
No, I just would appreciate everybody's support. We have a great team. I think things are working well at the county. We have our challenges, every community does, and we are focused every day on addressing those. But, when I started in the county, we were 250,000 people, in the 70s, and we're 850,000 people now, and we're going to continue to grow. And we have a lot of great opportunity here. My goal is to keep the place as it grows. Keep it just the best place to live and work, a beautiful place, and that is my goal, and that's what I'll work on in the next 4 years.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, definitely. Well, good luck.
Okay, thank you.